It's an honor to welcome you to the launch of Crush 25, a report by Safe in India Foundation. Safe in India helps injured workers, especially from the automotive sector supply chain, and has so far assisted more than 10,000 injured workers with ESIC compensation of more than 100 crores. Crush 2025, seventh in the series, the report continues to focus on occupational safety and health of workers in the supply chain of top 10 automotive brands. In addition to the analysis done in the previous reports, this report has a new analysis on new labor codes, which compares the labor codes in principle versus the status of practice and the factories from where Safe in India assists greater number of workers. And one such factory among these has had more than 60 injuries in past 5 years. Additionally, the recommendations have been updated in this version of the report. The report tried to analyze more than 6,000 auto sector injured workers data that have been assisted in the last 5 years. So the analysis points out that workers with crushed injuries coming to Safe in India have been rising every year, and so does the proportion of crushed injuries on power press machines. Majority of the workers that Safe in India assists are from vulnerable groups with low education or no formal education and low wages. This vulnerability reduces their ability to negotiate better and safe working environment. Therefore, higher the vulnerability, worse the injuries are. The graph points out that the proportion of crush injuries and the severity of injury is more in case of workers with low or no formal education and the workers with lower wages. And in some cases, the lower wages is less than the minimum wages that should be. Safe in India believes that the automobile brands have an crucial role to play in ensuring safer working conditions in the supply chain. More than 95% of the injured workers that Safe in India has assisted are from 6 of the top 10 brands, with their supply chain in Haryana and Maharashtra, where Safe in India has its 5 worker assistance centers. Fewer injuries reported for the other 4 brands, as Safe in India is yet to have its operation in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Gujarat, where these brands have their supply chain. Safe in India is opening an office, a worker assistance center in Tamil Nadu in this month. The quarterly trend graphs of injuries in the supply chain of the auto brands indicate a seasonal pattern with higher injuries in quarter 2 and quarter 3, which is common across all the years. And this is for the automobile brands with their supply chain both in Haryana and Maharashtra. It therefore highlights an opportunity for proactive supply chain monitoring during the high risk periods. In the supply chain for these auto brands, factories with the highest injured workers assisted by Safe in India have at least 3 injuries each year, with highest being 68 so far. At a closer level, these factories have severe injuries every year, and the actual number will be much higher. It is therefore a systemic problem that needs brands and even the government to make concerted efforts to improve and penalize such offenders.
This year we tried to kind of combine the labor codes that were released in 2019, which a lot of states have been adopting and making into an act and issuing the rules, to just see where it maps to what is happening on the ground based on the data that we've been collecting from our worker friends. One of the first important thing that we have been presenting regularly is that the government does not have enough information on accidents, because even though it is mandated that when there is an accident, the factories are supposed to report it to the government, they are not reporting. So if you see here, this is the data for Haryana. The government official figures for non-fatal accidents in 2022 was 48. and we had already met 1,053 in that year. That's the magnitude of difference that we are talking about. And the next years also, though they haven't reported, you can see that our numbers are growing as our team grows. And that we think is a very important thing that the government needs to take care of. Similarly, 60-hour weeks are becoming the norm, the 12-hour workday. Almost every state that's coming out with its rules are saying this. And the key important part here is that while this is being mandated, the upper limit for the week is not being mandated or not being watched, monitored. And therefore, we regularly find workers who are saying that they are working more than even 70 hours a week. And more importantly, they're not getting paid what they should be paid for the overtime that they put in. Right? So 76% have said that they work more than 60 hours a week. And 22% have said that, the other professionalism aspects that we look for, whether they get an appointment letter, whether they get salary slips. And what is connected with salary slips and the working hours is that the salary slip is not given to more than 78% of the workers. And if they are given, it most often will have the number of working hours shown low because they are not getting paid overtime at double the base rate. So these are all connected, and while the codes are very, all-encompassing and wants to do the right thing, if I might put it that way, what is happening on the ground is completely different and it needs to be monitored. We just want to highlight that. Similarly, the code mandates safe workplaces which are hazard-free. But again, we find, that the workers tell us that these factories are not following those norms. Maintenance and inspections are not a regular thing. Maintenance only happens if something breaks down. And that is how a lot of these injuries happen. 71% of the injuries are due to double stroke on the power press, which is because a spring or a pin breaks. And while there is a life to these springs and pins which are already given in the manuals, the owners do not want to wait to stop the workers, the work production assembly line, and therefore they wait for it to break. And that, it's very, when we get into it, it sounds very ridiculous for us because these pins and springs may cost as low as 1,500 or 2,500. But the owner seems to want to drag it to the last bit of its life and put other people's lives in danger. And similarly, there are no sensors. They remove it because they think it's stopping their productivity. And we've done enough analysis to understand that actually a well-run machine and a well-run factory is actually more productive than the ones that cut corners wherever they can. Other contraventions that we've seen, people we've met who have done more than 24 hours of work at a stretch, sometimes even more, 36 hours also I have heard. All these factories that we know of do not maintain or keep any registers for accidents or near misses, and therefore they do no analysis to understand why accidents are happening or what could be done to stop them. Most of the injured workers report that there is no information or notice about how to handle the equipment that they are on. Almost all of them have no training, which we will hear a little bit more a little later. Any factory that has more than 20 people has to be registered with ESIC, and once the workers are registered, they are supposed to hand over the details of the registration so that the worker can use the ESIC medical benefits, take his family there, or any other, all his rights that are accrued to that. And one of the things that all these owners do is not provide the registration details to the workers. And here you can see that, the numbers are close to, 17%, 20%. Workers receiving ESIC Pehchan Patra card after injury is a line that's just see 1,085 have got it after the injury, and only 684 already had the information. This is essentially that you're taking money from someone and not letting them use what they've paid for. And this again is, not only that the social security that their workers deserve is not being given to them, it is also an indicator of the business professionalism. And therefore we know where they are headed. And as Rahul already mentioned, we've been working closely with the government, different departments of the government, and a lot of our recommendations around this have now been sort of acknowledged and accepted. We've been making recommendations to all the stakeholders, and one of the key recommendations that we made, which we want to reiterate here, is that given that the government departments in different states don't seem to have all the accident data, and the factories don't seem to want to show the accident registers if they have it at all, ESIC definitely has this data, and we've been suggesting that this data be shared with everybody in different ways, whatever, a joint decision between all the stakeholders can happen. And it's a crucial bit of data that the country has and is not using well enough. But we are not suggesting that you go after all the factories and, raid them or do anything like that. We are saying find the hotspots, find the factories that are bad actors. Like we pointed out, I mean, one factory that we know of has one accident a month, at least. And is something happening to, bring that down? We have no idea. But we also know that for the last 5 years, they've been the way they have been. So this is something that we want all of you also to be cognizant of, to see what we can do to ensure that all the stakeholders get this data and work on it. And one of the suggestions leading from that is to form industry, government, worker, union, civil society sort of platform where we can then, look at deeper into these issues and look at how to implement the solutions that come out of discussions. We have, as we mentioned earlier, also been making recommendations to brands and OEMs. One of our key ideas, our thing is that, the brands and OEMs need to take responsibility. And therefore, we are saying that the responsibility has to come from the highest level. The boards should be discussing this and take it from there. And they need to ensure that all the transformation that happens throughout the supply chain and not just at their factory level. We all know that their factories are fairly safe. It is the rest that we need to understand and work on. And therefore, improve transparency, accountability, and the last one, set up a grievance redressal mechanism that is for the entire deeper supply chain. We have more short-term, medium-term recommendations, which you can look at in our report in greater detail. Similarly, we have recommendations for the Central Labor Ministry. And here again, that's why we want to talk about the OSH and WC labor codes, and we want to make them more cognizant of how to make it more robust so that the contraventions that are happening are not, something that people feel they can get away with. Someone has to monitor, and we need to figure out how. And there have to be more labor studies which cover accidents and injuries in greater detail, and build a business case for OSH so that the factories also buy into this, theory of safety, helping productivity, and therefore profitability. And this is for the MSME ministry, which is where most of the, most of the injuries that we see happen in the MSME sector. And therefore, we're saying that integrate near-miss and accident reporting into the Lean and Z programs. While they do say that accidents are already a part of it, if someone says, I've had no accidents, we need to look for more data to confirm that this is really what's happening.